Death in the modern era doesn't come from the alleyway, it comes from the stars. In the vertical sprawl of Neo-Berlin, the Aegis-Global Corporation had solved the problem of urban rebellion with a weapon they called the Skytax. They didn't need to deploy tanks or soldiers into the narrow, neon-choked streets of the Undercity. Instead, they launched the Gungnir 9 network, a constellation of 24 high-precision orbital snipers. These weren't just satellites, they were the ultimate judges. If a group of more than 5 people gathered without a permit, or if a known dissident signature was detected by the citywide scanners, the Gungnir would fire. It wasn't a bomb, it was a needle of pure, concentrated solar energy, traveling at the speed of light to erase a single person or a single room without damaging the surrounding corporate infrastructure. We lived our lives under the red dot, the constant, flickering laser sight that descended from the heavens. To the board of directors, we were just moving targets on a digital map. They believed that by controlling the high ground of space, they had achieved a state of divine execution. They thought the atmosphere was a shield that only they could penetrate. They assumed that because their snipers were 300 miles above the clouds, they were unreachable. They believed that by turning the sky into a weapon, they had made the very act of looking up a death sentence. They were catastrophically wrong. They forgot that every laser has a source and every satellite has a ground link. They assumed we were just hiding in the shadows. They forgot that if you spend enough time being hunted, you eventually learn the rhythm of the hunter. If Aegis-Global wanted to play God from the orbit, we decided to give them a lesson in how gods fall. We created the Prism Shift Protocol. And we birthed the 7th Long-Range Intercept Wing. The Void Trackers. We don't use standard stealth. A physical cloak is useless against a thermal imaging satellite. Instead, we use refractive suits, armor made of millions of microscopic liquid crystal mirrors that bend the satellite's own targeting lasers around our bodies. We don't carry assault rifles. We carry phase-rail long rifles, weapons designed to fire slugs made of polarized tungsten that can pierce the ionosphere. Our primary secondary tool is the mirror drone, a small, flying disc that reflects the Gungnir's beams back into the sky to confuse the orbital sensors. We are the only warriors in the galaxy who fight a war where the front line is a vertical line of light. We are the Void Trackers and we're about to cut the God Eye wide open. I am Elias Glass Thorn. My refractive suit is currently buzzing with the energy of a dozen Aegis-Global scanners trying to lock onto my position. I am perched on the edge of a holographic Neozine advertisement, 60 stories above the rain-slicked pavement. Above me, the sky is a boiling cauldron of gray clouds and blue flashes. And I'm about to take the shot. The ambush started with the sound of the air being torn apart. A Gungnir strike hit the Freedom Plaza 3 blocks away. There was no explosion, just a blindingly white needle of light that turned a rebel communications hub into a column of ash in less than a second. The shockwave of ionized air hit my face, smelling of ozone and burnt copper. Void Trackers engaged the Prism Shift. The satellite is recharging. We have exactly 15 seconds before the next pulse. I roared into the subvocal comms. Tracker 2 Sarah, moving to the uplink tower. I've got the mirror drones in the air. The satellite is hunting for a heat signature, Elias. Don't move your servos. Tracker 3 Jax, I'm at the ground station base. The Aegis security drones are everywhere. They're using thermal flares to try and blind our suits. I looked through the scope of my phase rail. High above, through the swirling storm clouds, I could see the tiny glowing red eye of the Gungnir 9 satellite. It was a cold, mechanical star, indifferent to the lives it was about to end. I saw the red targeting laser, the dot, scanning the rooftop. It passed over my legs, the liquid crystals in my suit shifting frantically to redirect the beam. My HUD was flashing a violent, rhythmic red. Lock prevented. Signal interference, 98%. Hold steady. The Aegis security drones, sleek, obsidian-winged predators, swarmed the building. They fired phosphor shells into the air, creating a white, blinding haze designed to maximize the satellite's thermal resolution. One drone hovered 20 meters from my position, its optical sensor spinning as it searched for the ghost on the billboard. I didn't use my rifle. I pulled a glass blade, a monomolecular ceramic knife, and threw it. The blade sliced through the drone's central processor with a silent snick. The machine flickered and fell, its engines dying before it hit the street below. But the movement was enough. The Gungnir 9 detected the kinetic shift. The red dot on the billboard stopped. It centered on my chest. Satellite lock confirmed. Evade. 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 Sarah. Now. Sarah triggered the mirror drones. 6 silver discs zipped into the air around me, forming a hexagonal array. The Gungnir 9 fired. The blue beam lanced down from the heavens. It was a pillar of solar fury that should have turned me into a smear of carbon. But as the beam hit the mirror drones, it didn't pass through. It was refracted. The blue light split into a dozen smaller beams, bouncing between the drones and creating a light cage around me. The energy was so intense that the rain around the billboard vaporized instantly, creating a thick shroud of steam. I used the cover of the steam to stand up. I didn't run. I aimed my phase rail directly at the source of the beam. Jax. The ground link. Kill the stabilization. Below, at the base of the Aegis-Global headquarters, Jax slammed a grav mace into the primary cooling pipes of the groundlink station. The station was the brain of the Gungnir network, providing the millisecond-perfect calculations needed for the orbital strikes. As the pipes shattered, liquid helium sprayed across the electronics, freezing the processors and causing the satellite's aim to wobble by a fraction of a millimeter. That fraction was all I needed. High above, the Gungnir 9 began to drift. Its beam, which had been perfectly contained by the mirror drones, began to tilt. It sliced through the top of the Aegis-Global headquarters, the white-hot light cutting through the executive floors like a hot wire through wax. My turn to snipe. I squeezed the trigger of the phase rail. The tungsten slug didn't just fly, it was accelerated by a magnetic field that drained my suit's entire battery in a nanosecond. The slug exited the barrel at Mach 20, a streak of violet fire that punched through the atmosphere. I didn't see the impact, but my scope's digital feed told the story. The slug hit the Gungnir 9's primary lens. The satellite didn't explode. Instead, the orbital strike it was currently firing was reflected back into its own internal systems. The blue beam turned inward, the satellite becoming a self-consuming star. I watched through the scope as the glowing red eye of the Gungnir 9 flared one last time and then went dark. The mechanical star fell out of the sky, a streak of orange fire disappearing into the horizon of the Pacific. The red dot on my chest vanished. The sky over Neo-Berlin turned back to its natural, storm-gray darkness. The rain continued to fall, washing the ozone scent from the air. Across the city, the other 23 satellites in the Gungnir network began to safe mode, their ground link having been severed by Jax's sabotage. The sky tax was no longer being collected. I collapsed onto the billboard, my suit hissing as the liquid crystals settled back into their matte gray state. My phase rail was smoking, the barrel glowing a dull, heated orange. I pulled off my visor, the cold rain hitting my face. I looked up at the Aegis-Global tower. The top 3 floors were missing, a jagged, molten scar marking the place where their own weapon had betrayed them. Sarah. Jax, report, I rasped, my voice sounding thin in the sudden silence of the rooftops. I'm here, Glass. The mirror drones are melted, but the uplink is dead. The sky is clear. For the first time in 10 years, it's just rain. Still kicking. Ground station is a block of ice. Aegis security is retreating. They don't know how to fight without their god eye. I stood up, the weight of the phase rail feeling like a part of my own body. I looked out at the city. The neon lights were still there, the drones were still there, and the corporation was still there, but the fear was gone. We had reached into the heavens and plucked the eye out of the god of Aegis-Global. I slung my rifle over my shoulder and walked toward the maintenance hatch. The storm was heavy, the city was loud, and the corporate war was far from over. But as I looked up one last time, I saw the stars. They were red-shifted and warped by the city's pollution, but they were no longer looking for me. The beam has faded. The satellite is scrap. The sky over Neo-Berlin is human once again.